everyone, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today, Exploring Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. Please note that all lines are currently on mute and will remain on mute throughout the presentation. If you have any questions, please enter them within the chat box, and we will address them at the end during our Q&A period at the end of the presentation. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Holman, who will begin.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Remington. As Remington mentioned, we will get to a point in the webinar where we will stop and ask for questions. So please feel free to take down any questions that you have. And when we get to the question and answer period, we're happy to pause and answer any questions you may have. To get started, we first have a quick PowerPoint presentation to introduce us at BAASS, and as well to do some quick overviews of Business Central. Following that, we will then jump right into the product, and we will show you in the product some nice features that it allows to have, some quick, easy productivity that you'll see, especially on the purchasing and the sales side, and we'll dive a little bit into the inventory to give you some exposure to Business Central. So to introduce myself, my name is Jennifer Holman, and I have been in the ERP space for quite some time, about 15 years at this point, both practicing Microsoft and Sage solutions. I started my career in the Sage platform and then evolved to the Microsoft solution, but as a consultant first and then as a project manager. And now I spend most of my time as a project manager and in pre-sales. So today's agenda, as I mentioned, get to know a little bit about BAASS. We'll dive into Microsoft Business Central features. We'll do a live demonstration, and then we'll move into the question and answer period. So who we are at BAASS. We are located in 23 locations across Canada, the US, and the Caribbean. We help over 4,500 companies in a variety of industries. We work with your projects and have clients that have completed over 20,000 projects, both big and small. We're a growing team of 150, and we have expertise in ERP, CRM, and BI, which is business intelligence. We have a few nice quotes here from customers that have shown what successes they've had, whether that's just working with us through support, working with us on a project, or working with us to increase their productivity, look at some of their risks, some of their pain points, and optimize that with the solution. What we do at BAASS is we work with you to transform your business to align people, processes, and technology together. We work with you as a trusted advisor to improve your operational efficiencies. So it's important that at the very beginning of any implementation that we spend the time to get to know your business so that we can implement successfully, and that on both sides there is a trusted relationship that you know that your implementation is going to succeed. Why BAASS? Well, as I mentioned, we build a relationship with you first. From there, we manage your project from start to finish. We have a successful implementation methodology that we follow in our projects. Once you are live, you will have a dedicated support team for you. And during your implementation, as well as after, we offer full training for yourself and for your staff. Now let's take a look at some features in Business Central. Some areas around Business Central that are important is that we are able to see industry trends. We're able to get into artificial intelligence to provide us information about our business and about our data. We can look at Power BI as other avenues of creating trends in our business and having those visuals. And those are things that you'll see today as we're diving into the solution itself. It is fully integrated with Outlook, Word, and Excel, being a Microsoft solution. And it's also available on any device, being a desktop, a tablet, or a mobile device. We get real-time dashboards and KPIs, which again, you'll see today in the demonstration, which will ultimately boost efficiency. And as well, you can add automated tasks in your Business Central, so giving you reminders or approvals for users to accept new customers, approve documents, and so on. I mentioned it already has the built-in intelligence, which again, I'll mention when we go into the solution. And it's an area where you can connect your teams in one single solution. So that single solution would include things like project management, operation management, reports and analytics, supply chain, sales and service management, and then of course your financial management. So if you're a distributor, you're going to lean heavily on the supply chain. If you're a construction company, you may lean more on the project management side. The reports and analytics, you can get into things like Power BI, as well as using the out-of-the-box reports. Power BI is fully integrated with Business Central and as well a Microsoft solution. It has sales and service management. So on the sales side, we can have a very light CRM solution where we can track opportunities and contacts. But we also have a service management side that can handle service tickets, warranties, maintenance, and so on. There are often reasons why users choose to move off their current solution, and these are the common areas that we see. You have siloed systems. There's activities happening in multiple systems, and you're having to bring them together. You have duplicate data, maybe in those siloed systems as well. Manual processes, insufficient reporting, again, maybe due to that siloed system, and security issues. So in Business Central, it has roles, and then it has the ability to edit down to the table level for security. I mentioned that you can take your business with you anywhere. In this visual, you'll see a desktop version, a tablet version, and a mobile device. When it comes to the desktop version, we have more real estate. We have more areas, hyperlinks that we may select, as well we see some tiles. As we move to the tablet, we're seeing more tiles and lists and graphs. And then when we move to the mobile device, we start with tiles. And as we drill in further, we get into areas like graphs and lists. So those three different views are giving you first the tile, then the graph you may select, and then a list view. And that list view is an example of looking at all of your inventory items. So everything can be done from any device. Business Central also comes equipped with its own app store. So Microsoft has an app store called AppSource, and that's where you can get any extension to Business Central. So let's say, for example, you may need a integration to something like Moneris. There is a payment gateway application that's available on site. You may also need something that has a little bit more sophistication in commissions. There is an app for that as well. So we can search AppSource to find extensions for Business Central. Not only do they have software, but it also has documentation, training, and so on available on AppSource. So now let's dive into Business Central and see Business Central live. So here I am logged into Business Central. When I log in, I'm using, of course, my desktop application here. So the first thing that catches my eye is the data intelligence, so the artificial intelligence using Cortana intelligence that goes through the data and gives me some key information about areas in my business. My top performing item, my top performing customer, the value that they bought that last invoice for. It will go through each bubble, providing you with other insights into your data. To the right, we've got our quick actions. So again, productivity is very important. Quick actions. As a business manager, I have access to both sales, purchasing, as well as finance. I have all access into the software here, so I can see both sales and purchases, and my quick actions relate to that. As I scroll further down, I'm seeing activities, and I'm also seeing some color indication to give me, again, another visual. As a user, I'm able to set up my own cues as well as my thresholds to provide these colors. So we have unfavorable to favorable, giving us the different thresholds. And again, this is done by the end user. We have tiles, which represent what is ongoing in our environment. So as a business manager, I very quickly want to be able to see what is ongoing in terms of a sales quote or sales orders. Why aren't these now moved to either a shipment or moved to an invoice? So here they're still open, waiting to be settled, and this gives us a quick access into those. So if I click on the sales invoices as an example, it's going to give me the list of all of the open sales invoices. And from here, I can go ahead and complete the posting. I can also drill into the sales invoice by clicking on the hyperlink. Scrolling further down, we're seeing there are automated tasks. So if we have any user tasks that we have set up, any reminder lists, those will be available on our desktop as well, on our dashboard, as well as any approvals. Our insights into our data, this is using Power BI. So I mentioned that Business Central is fully integrated with Power BI. So we're seeing different insights into our data, and we can hover over these graphs to give us some more information. I can change my graphs as well to different types of reports. Further down here, we see an area for Power BI reports. This is an area that if you design your own reports, you are able to pin them to your desktop, to this dashboard, and they will be available to you in Business Central. So you would not have to go into Power BI and run the report. You can pin them right to your dashboard here. As a business manager, I mentioned I have access to the financial information as well. So on my dashboard, I'm seeing information about my favorite accounts, as well as a trial balance, and is giving me a 1-month variance as well into that information. So my total revenue, my total expenses, and so on. I can click on the hyperlink, and again, it will show me the details that make up this operating expenses and this value. At the very top, we've got quick access into our master records. So we're not having to navigate into any modules at this point to get into looking at our customers or to create a sales invoice. If I do want to go into the module access, I can drop down at the top, and these are our modules. As an example, with finance, I have areas around doing a general journal, looking up my chart of accounts. When it comes to sales, I can look at my customers, my items, an order, invoices, and so on. And same thing for purchasing. If I can't find what I'm looking for specifically, maybe it's a particular report and that report lives within the customers, I can start typing out in the search using a keyword search like customers, and it will give me anything that's on the current page, anything that is in the database that represents in terms of a page or a task for customers, reports, documentation, so help documentation, and maybe if there's anything on AppSource that comes up with that keyword of customers. It only shows 3 to begin with, so you can expand as well to see the full listing of what's available with that keyword search. As you get more comfortable in the solution, search is often the way that we see people moving forward. In my settings, this is the area where I can change my role or change my company, so it is multi-company as well, and my territory. If I change my role, just to give an example of changing this to the sales and relationship manager, this role now on our dashboard will change to be optimal for a sales manager. So now instead of seeing areas around purchasing or finance, they're only seeing areas around sales. Their actions are different, their insights are different, their key master records are different. And as we scroll down, the activities change and different types of insights. So this just gives an example of different roles within Business Central. When you first start off, we use the roles that are available and we work with you to modify those roles based on your organization. I'm just going to move back now to the business manager role. So let's go ahead and take a look at a master record. We'll start with customers and then we'll move to items and then we'll go into transactions. While looking at customers, right now I am looking at this in a list view. It gives me the customer number, their name, some information, sales code, and so on, the main contact, and what the current outstanding balance is. Anytime in Business Central, we can export to Excel, and we can also, in some cases, edit in Excel. A case where you may edit in Excel on the customer card is maybe changing the main contact, updating phone numbers, updating the taxes. Those are areas that you may do in edit in Excel and publish it back to the database without having to use a traditional import and export tool. Right now, I'm looking at my customers in a list view. I can change that to be in tall tiles or regular tiles. When I change that, we begin to see images. So the database allows for images on customers, vendors, as well as items, but it's still giving me the same information, the customer number, the name, the main contact, and the balance. I'm going to switch back to list view. And while I'm on customers here, a nice feature as well is the personalized feature available to end users. So in this case, I'm going to add a field. You select the area that you would like to add a field, and it will look in the database for this table, so the customer table. And here are all the tables, all the fields that are available in that table. If I want to include a field, let's say currency code as an example, I just have to drag and drop the phone number. The phone number field then becomes present. Oh, sorry, the currency code. Let's see, hold on one second. Click currency. Here we go. There we go. So drag and drop. Okay. If you want to remove a field, the same thing. Select the field and drag it over. While looking at customers, we also have information on the right-hand side, statistics about the customer that we are highlighted on. So we can quickly look at open sales quotes, orders that are going on, the balance and statistics, and again, we can drill in. We also have information at the top about the customer, some reports, information about the customer, but we can also drill into the customer itself. And within the customer itself, it also has a ribbon. So just like Microsoft solutions when using things like Word or Excel where we're used to the ribbon, we have that same ribbon feel in Business Central as well. So clicking on the ribbon as an example under new document, under new document can set up a new sales quote, invoice, or order right from the customer account. Under the customer account as well, some nice features that are in here is that we can look up our ledger entries. Anything that was posted to the customer account would be available in ledger entries. So again, as somebody who's on the finance side or who's managing the customer itself, you may need to look into all of the posted transactions. It will tell us whether it's an invoice, a payment. The red indication are outstanding invoices. And in addition, it also has a full audit trail. So we are able to see who the user was that created those transactions. We can also see that when looking up, when we go to navigate, we can look up specifics, invoices, orders, and so on. So ledger entries gives us everything that was posted as a full group, but you can also narrow it down in different views within Business Central. You can have multiple contacts for a customer, multiple ship-to addresses as well. And as well, a nice feature, whether it's customers or vendors, is that it does have electronic funds transfers included. So bank accounts is where we would set up either the customer or vendor bank account. And then you are able to use EFT, which is included. That gives an example of a customer card. I'm going to move now to the item card to give an example of all the extra fields that we have in items that sometimes set it apart from a solution like QuickBooks or Sage 50 as an example. There's some extra features. I'm going to go ahead and pick on the Athens desk for our demonstration today. But again, some key information that we have here that we can see right from the screen is that we can have both an inventory item as well as service items within Business Central. So going back to where we can include all teams within our organization, if you're a service provider, you are able to also use Business Central and have those known as service items versus an inventory item. It will tell us on the screen what's in stock, how many we have in stock, what the unit of measure is, and what our typical unit cost is on that item. When we navigate further into the item, we're able to see additional information that is quite important on an item. So when it comes to the inventory itself on an item, areas where we can see what's on purchase order or even maybe on a production order, because Business Central also handles manufacturing, we can see when there are transactions occurring for this inventory item right from the item card itself. We don't need to go to a different item inquiry screen to find that. That is all available within the item card. The same goes when we are looking at our costing for the product. Here we can publish what our unit cost is. We can also create purchase discounts and prices on an item. When it comes to the sales and sales prices here, we can publish what our sales prices are. But if we had specific sales prices, maybe for a specific sales group that you've got or for a specific customer, we can set up those specific prices. And as you can see for this item, I've set up an example of those discounts, which is why it says view existing prices and discounts, whereas the purchasing price did not. It says create new. So which tells us that there is no special pricing for purchases, but there is for sales. So let's just quickly take a look at prices. So this tells us that there is a special price for a particular customer. So if we go up here to prices and discounts, we can see our sales prices. So as an example for a particular customer on this product, if they are getting a specific price. So we can go ahead and select customer, a customer price group. So that's again the group of customers that may belong to a certain retail group or whatever that may be, certain territory, that could be a price group, all customers, or because it has a CRM solution, it could be based on a campaign for that special price. So maybe a seasonal product might be on campaign. When we pick a particular customer, it will ask us which customer. So as an example, if we were to pick somebody like Trey Research, we can say what unit of measure, if there's a minimum quantity, what their price of this may be. So maybe instead of it being $1,700, it's only $1,000, and then you can have special start and end dates. That's an example of setting up special prices, so that's fully available in Business Central. When it comes to replenishment, you can have preferred vendors on your replenishment, and the replenishment system can be 3 options. We purchase the product. If you're a manufacturer, this may be a manufactured item, so it needs to create a production order. Or if it's a bill of material item, then we would consider this an assembled product to create new stock. So in this case, we'll keep it to purchase. And as I mentioned, you can have a preferred vendor. You can also include additional vendors as well. By default, the main screen is here, but there are areas under the item in the ribbon where we can assign additional vendors to that record. Under the purchasing, you can see that there's a unit of measure here. So something that stands apart from other solutions is that for the inventory unit of measure, it can be different than the purchasing, as well as it can be different for the sales unit of measure. So whether it's a purchase, a sale, or just a stock, how you stock that item, you can have different units of measure be used. Under the item tracking as well is areas where we can specify if an item is a serial item or a lot tracked item. So it has full traceability within the solution as well. On the item itself, we can have many attachments about that item. You can also have attachments on customers, vendors, and transactions. So all attachments throughout, as well as comments, which are known as notes. The solution also handles attributes. And at the side here for this Athens desk, we're seeing what the attributes are for the item. So in this case, an attribute is known as the color, the depth, the width, or the height. And we specify that very specifically for this item. So sometimes if you're selling something like t-shirts, you might have small, medium, and large all in black. Item attributes helps us to distinguish between those different items. On a master record card, there is always an area that says reports, whether that's customers, items, vendors. So under reports are the key reports, but it doesn't mean that those are the only reports for the item. Remember, we always have the search option as well. There's reports in other areas of the solution, but these are the key areas for reports on this item itself. When it comes to the inventory and pricing and sales, it's a very flexible solution in terms of being able to cater to different vendors, different customers. Again, something that stands apart from other solutions. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and we're going to do a purchase order. We're going to purchase the Athens desk, and we're going to do the purchase order in stages to see the receiving stage to invoice. And I will then very quickly do a sales order to show that they're very similar, which is a great thing for the end users when learning the solution. So let's go ahead. We're going to go to our purchasing module. So now I'm navigating a little bit differently in the solution just to give some different options within navigating through the solution. So under purchasing, I'm going to go to purchase orders. And currently we have some open purchase orders. So these ones are still open, waiting to be either received or invoiced. But in our case, we're just going to go ahead and create a new invoice. Or sorry, a new purchase order. We're going to select our vendor. We get into the line details and we have some options under the line. By default, it will go to item, but there are options that can also be the GL account. So if it's not an inventory item that you're purchasing, let's say, for example, you're doing a purchase invoice and it is just for a trade invoice, you may select GL account instead. We can also purchase fixed assets. So fixed assets is included as well in Business Central. And as well, we can have an item charge. So something like shipping, for example, would be known as an item charge. And then finally, we've got this option comment. Comment is for you to write more comments in the description field, but it does not have a value attached to that. So we'll keep this to item. And the next option that it asks us for is which item are we purchasing. So we're going to purchase the Athens desk. And how many are we going to purchase? Actually, for this example, I'm going to do 2 to show the receiving stage. Okay. And because we already had a cost associated to the item, it has pulled that cost in here for us. If we use the preferred vendor and we had a purchase price that was different for that vendor, then it will pull the purchase price. So that specific purchase price, that special price that you put on that will be pulled here instead. As I scroll further over, we get to the areas where it says quantity to receive, then quantity received, quantity to invoice, and quantity invoiced. So something in Business Central to know is that everything gets saved automatically. Up at the top, I see that it says saved here. That means that this purchase order has already been saved. We do not post a purchase order. It isn't until the time of receiving that we begin posting and where it updates that valuation in inventory and so on. So in this case, my purchase order is already saved. I am now at the receiving stage. I have only received one. So I'm going to override this field to 1. When I hit post, I have options to receive, to invoice, or receive an invoice. In this case, I'm just going to hit receive and hit OK. Now I've got a value showing that I have received 1, but I still have 1 left to receive. And I have not had an invoice yet, so I still have an outstanding quantity of 2 to invoice. My status also changed from opened to now released because a transaction has been posted. So now to complete this transaction, bring everything to invoice, we can go ahead and hit post and invoice. But I know that the solution is going to get mad that I don't have an invoice number. What I want to show you is that if I say receive an invoice, it will come up with an error message that tells me that I need to enter a document number for the vendor invoice field. I'm showing you this to show that the error messages that come up are very easy to understand and able for us to make those corrections very quickly. So now let's go ahead and post. This time I'm going to say receive an invoice. I'm going to receive the remaining 1 and I'm going to invoice for the 2. It tells me that my posted purchase order has been created. Would I like to go view that posted invoice window? At this point, I'm going to say yes. It has now moved from being a purchase order or a purchase invoice into a posted purchase invoice. And once it is posted, we're able to do things like correcting, so creating a credit note. We're also able to navigate into the solution itself, into the purchase order, into this invoice, and see what the financial transactions were. So I can look up my posted purchase invoice and I can show the related entries, or I can print that. I can also look at my GL entries, my tax entry, and so on. So let's go and look at the GL entries that were created for this purchase invoice. This shows all the accounts that were hit when posting from purchase receipt to purchase invoice. So again, as a business manager, I have access into seeing all of this information, but I never had to go to the GL to find that balance or run a report. I could do that all from within the screens that I'm in using inquiries. So that's a purchase order to invoice. The sales side is the exact same, except we're selling to customers. So I'm going to select a sales order at this point. I'm going to create new, just like the purchase order. The screens are very similar, as you can already see. We're selecting a customer, just like we selected a vendor. It brings us to the item lines. Defaults to item. My values are still the same in that drop down, which is nice. Again, really great for training purposes, that the users get comfortable in the screens because they're similar. At this point, we're going to sell our Athens desk. And you might notice that I've got some extra fields in here, things like drop ship and so on. So drop ship, of course, is included as well. But any of these additional fields, with personalizing, you can remove fields that you do not need. So you can take away some of the extra noise on screen for the fields that you don't need. I'm scrolling over to simply show you the quantity to ship, quantity shipped, quantity to invoice, and quantity invoice screen. Same idea as what we had on purchasing. Right, so again, just being very comfortable within the transactions, that the screens are very similar. At this point, I'm going to post, and I'm going to ship an invoice this time. I will not go through the stages. Within Business Central, we set up what we call our number series. And our number series are numbers that are based on whether that's a master record, being customer numbers, vendor numbers, and item numbers, but also on our transaction numbers. So when creating a sales invoice, it creates that invoice number right away for us. We don't have to create any type of manual transactions, manual numbers. Everything is already set up through the number series. So those are things that we work with you on in the implementation to make sure that your numbering either stays the same or is what you desire going forward. At this point, I'm not going to open up my posted my posted sales invoice because it's the exact same as what we saw on the purchase side. So within Business Central, we have looked at our role centers, giving us some differences between a business manager and a sales manager and what the role center screens have as soon as we log in. We've looked at our master record cards and some of the nice functionality that we've got in those master record cards, whether we want to integrate electronics funds transfers, multiple ship to addresses, multiple contacts. We've looked at the item and some of the extra areas like having different units of measure on whether it's the purchasing versus the inventory versus the sales side, the item attributes. So some differentiators that take you from something like QuickBooks into something like Business Central, that next step. What we haven't seen is the Outlook integration. So I'm going to do that now for us. I'm going to go into my Outlook itself. I'm using myself and my email for this demonstration. What I have done already is added myself as a contact to Tray Research. So when I log in, when I receive an email from somebody who is a contact within Business Central, as soon as I hit Contact Insights, it brings up this screen for me. This is everything about Tray Research. So when we were on the customer card, we saw the same types of tiles, the same types of statistics that we are seeing within Outlook. So I don't need to be in Business Central and Outlook at the same time. I could just operate within Outlook. From here on this customer card, I can go ahead and say whether I want to do a new quote, invoice, order. I can look up information. I can send information. Okay, so there's some different information here. For this example, I'm going to create a new sales quote. So from here, it brings up the sales quote screen, and I'm doing a quote instead of an order this time because a quote also has the same screens as an order. So again, for that, getting familiar with screens, being comfortable with what fields are where, the navigation, they are all similar. So let's go ahead and click on our Athens desk. Oops, I hit that X by mistake. Give me 1 second. Didn't mean to close that. Okay. New quote. Try that again. Athens desk. Okay. We're going to do a quantity of 1. Okay. And again, it knows the pricing. So I only needed to do how much are they looking to order and a quantity of 1. In the email, they might tell you a little bit more information, what they want, what type of item number. Using suggested products can help as well with creating the quotes. But again, it's just some nice clicks. We only need to create new contact. Everything else is there. We just say a quantity of 1. And then from here, we can say send by email. And that email comes up, addressed to myself, to Jennifer, has the details in the message, but also adds an attachment. And within this attachment, I'm just going to open this up so you're able to see an example of what the out-of-the-box reports have. Just to note that the out-of-the-box reports, or any of the reports, are written in Word in Business Central. So you still do need to understand the database table to complete the reports, but you don't need a reporting solution like Crystal Reports as an example. So this just gives an example of what that report will look like. The quotes, the invoices, the purchase orders, they all look very similar to this, so you may have some modification, but it is still a nice clean looking report. Close that. So at this point, we can just go ahead and hit send. So it's very quick to work with. Within Outlook, you can be on the road as a salesperson needing to quickly complete a transaction, open up your Outlook, you can take care of that, send it by email very quickly. I didn't mention that in Business Central, while creating a sales order or a sales quote, that you can send by email within the solution as well. That is possible. So I didn't do that as a demonstration because I wanted to show this Outlook integration this way, but that is still available within Business Central itself. So if you are more comfortable operating in Business Central, you can still send by email there. So at this point, this concludes the webinar presentation on Business Central as an overview of some of the features when it comes to supply chain and also the Outlook integration. I will ask now if anybody has any questions.
I do have a few questions here already, and just a reminder to type them into the chat if you do have a question. So the first one I have is, can the system handle parent-child relationships with customer accounts?
Perfect, great question. So it can. If we go into customers, I actually have a customer here that's already set up with this relationship. We have a parent relationship and a child relationship. And in that child relationship, it means that they are not receiving the invoice. So I've got 2 contacts here. I've got John Smith and Kid Smith. When it comes to Kid Smith, this is where I am saying that John Smith is going to be the bill to customer. So under the invoicing section in customer, we have the area here where you can select that bill to. So Kid Smith is customer account 30, but the bill to account is customer account 20. And that's how we handle the parent-child relationships.
Next question I have here is, can a customer send us an order via email, and would it automatically turn into an order? If so, is there documentation online somewhere?
Sounds good. So what you can do through an order, you can, when you're receiving something through an email, you can turn on suggested items. And so if they have an example where it says they want the Athens desk in that email, you can turn on suggested items so that when you go to create a new sales order, it will select, or it will come up with those suggested items to be sold. And from there, you can click on the suggested items, and then it will bring you then into this quote screen, but it will already have that filled out as those suggested products. And then from there, you can email it back.
And the last question I have here is, can the system handle vendor and customer part numbers?
Okay, good question. So for that, what we do under the item, I'll just open up Athens desk as an example. Under the Related tab, under Item, we have what we call cross-references. And in that cross-references is where we can have our customer, our vendor, or a barcode, and you identify what that cross-reference is. Okay, so if it's a customer, who's the customer account? What is that item number that will go to them? Maybe you're overriding, instead of it being pieces, it's eaches as their unit of measure. And if you want to display the barcode, so if you're using barcodes, if you want that to be displayed on forms, that's available here as well. So if you're doing any type of shipping, that's available. Other things that are also, I'm just going to exit out of here. We do not want to save this. Oops. The other thing that is also available, so yes, it has the cross-references, but it also has the translations. So if you're doing any type of, say, Canadian to French translations, that also is available here. So you can do the translations on what Athens desk is in French, for example. So when it comes out on forms for any French customer, that translation will appear.
Perfect. And it does look like that's all the questions that we have coming in so far. So with that being said, I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy day to attend, as well as you, Jennifer, for presenting. And everyone will receive an email with the recording when it becomes available. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.
Thank you very much.